The chill of the morgue still clung to me, a phantom cold that had settled deep into my bones. But this time it was a different kind of chill. The kind that comes from a grave, a fresh one. My brother Julian was gone. In my first life, this day had marked the beginning of my end. I stood at Julian's graveside, a silent observer as his coffin was lowered. Beside me, Serena, Julian's wife, swayed precariously, her face a ghostly white. I knew, with the certainty of a memory relived, that she was pregnant. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Vance, clutched at each other, their grief performative but convincing. Later, at the hospital where I rushed Serena after her inevitable collapse, they would corner her. They'd dangle the promise of a lavish monthly allowance, 20,000 yuan, if she'd abort the baby, claiming it was for her own good, to spare her the hardship of raising a child alone. I, Ilara Vance, had seen through their charade. I knew their combined pension barely topped 2,000 yuan. Their promises were empty words, a manipulative ploy. Unable to stomach their deceit, I had revealed the truth to Serena, hoping to protect her. She had listened, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty, and the next day she went to the clinic. Years later, a chance encounter at a hospital where my father was recovering from a fall had brought Serena back into our lives. She was haggard, a victim of an abusive marriage. Seeing me, dressed in designer clothes, her eyes had blazed with an undeniable envy. She'd then whispered a poison into my parents' ears. Ilara forced me, she even laid hands on me to get rid of Julian's son. My parents, blind with grief and a desperate desire for an heir, had believed her. Their hatred for me had become a festering wound. It culminated in my own death. During an asthma attack, they had confiscated my phone and my inhaler, leaving me to suffocate in my room. A life for a life, an heir for a daughter. But this time I had a second chance. The scent of damp earth and wilting lilies filled my nostrils, but the agonizing constriction in my chest was gone. My vision sharpened, focusing on Julian's name etched into the cold stone. I was back. I watched Serena sway, her face pale, just as she had in my previous life. My parents' faces were contorted with a grief that felt more like self-pity to me now. A burning resentment churned in my gut, but this time I wouldn't intervene. This time I'd let the play unfold, and I would write my own part. Serena inevitably fainted. Just like before, the crowd gasped, and my parents rushed forward. I feigned concern, helping to lift her into the car. But as my parents prepared to follow, I subtly tugged my mother aside. "Mom, Dad, I can't go to the hospital with her," I whispered, lowering my voice conspiratorially. "She fainted at Julian's funeral. If I go, I'll be expected to pay for everything. The tests, the medicine. She's calculative. Why should I spend thousands on her? Are you really planning to give her money?" My parents, notoriously tight-fisted, instantly latched onto my words. "That's right, Ilara. You're absolutely right," my mother hissed, pulling my father closer. "What kind of opportunist is Serena? She'll probably remarry soon enough. Our money is not for her to squander. No, you shouldn't go. But what if she loses the baby?" I interjected, a flicker of panic in my voice. "The drama won't even begin if that happens." "You're right, we must secure the future of our grandchild," my father grumbled. I quickly stopped them as they started to follow Serena. "No, don't go with her," I urged, feigning worry. "Just say you have urgent matters. People will talk if they see you there. They'll say the Vances are heartless, abandoning their daughter-in-law right after their son's death. Just act ignorant, say you forgot your wallet, and you don't know how to pay online." My parents, fearing public scorn and the expense, agreed to my plan. They wouldn't go to the hospital. Good, I thought, let the play continue without me. I weaved through the sympathetic onlookers, returning to my car, my mind racing with a mix of dread and cunning. I took a deep, shaky breath, composing myself. This time I wouldn't fall into the same trap. I remembered the scene vividly from my first life. Serena's confirmed pregnancy, my parents' ecstatic cries of gratitude to the heavens, their joyful proclamations about the Vance legacy. They had been so consumed by their dreams of a grandson, they hadn't even noticed Serena's discomfort, or my own attempts to temper their expectations. They had, in fact, berated me for my supposed heartlessness, accusing me of disrespecting Julian's memory. This time I would let them revel in their fantasy. Later that day my phone rang. My mother's voice, giddy with excitement, bubbled over the line. "Ilara, the heavens have blessed us. Serena is pregnant." "Is that so?" I managed, my voice trembling with feigned emotion. "Then that baby is the only hope for the Vance family. How could she possibly abort it?" I smiled, a bitter, triumphant curve of my lips. "This time, I'll collect interest on every moment of suffering." Just as before, Serena sought me out for confirmation of my parents' promises. We met at the same coffee shop, but this time I spoke first. "Serena, how are you feeling?" I began, my voice laced with genuine-sounding concern. "The first trimester can be quite difficult, I hear. And with Julian gone, you've truly suffered. You're enduring so much." Serena's eyes softened, a faint flush rising to her cheeks as she gently patted her slightly swollen belly. "Ilara, Julian's gone, and I'm carrying his child. Your parents want me to keep the baby. They're saying they'll—" I cut her off, my voice full of enthusiasm. "Serena, my parents already told me everything. They said if you agree to keep the baby, they won't dispute any of Julian's insurance money or inheritance. And as for their own assets, if there are any, they'll definitely leave them to you and the baby. They'll do their best to support you. I have no objections whatsoever." Serena blinked, clearly surprised by my immediate and unequivocal support. A wide smile spread across her face, and her eyes welled up. "Ilara, you are truly too kind to me. Your parents don't object, and you're not making things difficult. I'm so lucky to have married into your family." "Oh, Serena," I gushed, leaning forward with a conspiratorial twinkle in my eye. "Marrying Julian was a blessing for him, and for the entire Vance family. If you don't keep this baby, the Vance lineage will end." My sycophantic words seemed to inflate her pride, and all traces of grief for Julian vanished, replaced by an eager anticipation for her new life. Still, a faint furrow appeared on her brow. "Ilara," she hesitated, What if the baby is a girl? Will your parents still treat me well?" I chuckled lightly, as if her question was utterly absurd. "Serena, of course my parents would prefer a grandson, but given our family situation, whether it's a boy or a girl, this baby is the only grandchild of the Vance family. They'll cherish it more than their own eyes. Besides, look at me. I'm a girl, and I haven't suffered any disadvantage. A child is a child, no matter the gender." Serena laughed softly, her face relaxing, all worry gone from her voice. "You're right, it's Julian's only child, and your parents' only grandchild. They can't possibly be difficult about the gender." I nodded in agreement, adding a strategic caveat. "Serena, we'll know the baby's gender in about 2 months. If it's a girl, my parents might grumble a bit, but once the baby is born, it's their own flesh and blood. They won't be able to resist loving it. But it's best not to tell them too early. I wouldn't want you to be stressed during your pregnancy. A healthy baby is what matters most. As for my parents..." I trailed off, letting her fill in the blanks. That evening, after seeing Serena off, I returned home. It took immense effort not to burst out laughing. My parents were in high spirits, their grief over Julian's death overshadowed by the joy of an impending grandchild. As soon as I walked in, my mother pulled me aside. "Ilara, do you know any doctors who can tell us the baby's gender?" Smiled. My parents' patriarchal leanings were strong, but I had learned to navigate them. "Mom, doctors won't reveal the gender. But we could find a fortune teller, couldn't we?" My superstitious mother's eyes lit up. I knew a well-placed envelope of cash would ensure the fortune teller predicted a grandson. And so, after a visit to a gifted fortune teller, my parents were absolutely convinced Serena was carrying their golden grandson. Overjoyed, they insisted Serena move in with them for easier care. Serena initially demurred, but my mother's meticulous attention to her every need. Even bringing her water soon won her over. Serena reveled in the pampering, the 2,000 yuan monthly allowance, and the promise of Julian's insurance money. My parents, meanwhile, toiled tirelessly, exhausted but happy. 2 months later, Serena secretly had an ultrasound and discovered she was carrying a baby girl. She was anxious, but I quickly reassured her. Serena, even if it's a granddaughter, she's the only grandchild, Julian's only bloodline. My parents couldn't possibly dislike her. Once she's born, she's guaranteed to win their hearts. I adopted a sincere tone, adding, Serena, please don't secretly abort the baby out of fear. Even if my parents don't continue to help you, you can still raise the child yourself, right? Get a job, pay off the mortgage on the house. It'll be tough, but you can do it. Oh, and this house, since it was a wedding gift, you'll have to split a portion with my parents. Remember to prepare for that. Knowing them, they'll make a huge fuss. Comparing her current comfortable life with the daunting prospect of struggling alone and potentially having to fork over money to my parents, Serena decided to keep the baby. It was Julian's only child after all. And so, Serena continued to enjoy my parents' devoted service until she gave birth. It was a baby girl. My parents' disappointment was palpable, though they tried to hide it. Now it was my turn to perform. I arrived at the hospital with a set of baby clothes I had bought months ago. The moment I saw Serena, I exclaimed dramatically, Serena, you've given the Vance family a young lady. You are truly a hero. I held up the tiny pink dress. Look at this outfit I bought months ago. Isn't it lovely? Serena offered a strained smile, exchanging polite greetings. My parents' faces, however, had turned thunderous. My father abruptly stood, snatching the dress. Ilara Vance, he roared, his eyes blazing. What do you mean, months ago? This is clearly for a girl. You knew all along this was a useless purchase, didn't you? He didn't care about Serena's feelings, his rage unbridled. My mother glared at me, her face contorted with resentment. Before I could respond, Serena's parents, who had just arrived, could no longer hold back. Useless purchase, her mother scoffed. My daughter suffered through pregnancy to give you a grandchild, and you're still not satisfied? Who was it that begged and pleaded for her to keep the baby? Who promised her everything under the sun to convince her not to abort? And now what? Are you going to deny all your promises? Serena's father held up his phone, displaying a video. In it, my parents' voices echoed, clear and undeniable, making every lavish promise. The best maternity care, a nanny, all of Julian's insurance money, 20,000 yuan a month, and the house. The audio from the video washed over my parents, their faces draining of color. This video, I said, feigning astonishment. It can't be fake, can it? Serena, who had just been touched by her parents' defense, now glared at me, her eyes filled with suspicion. I looked up at the window, and for the first time in years, the sunlight felt truly warm. I had survived. I was no longer a soul writhing in the hatred of the past, no longer a puppet in my family's tragic play. I had broken free. My life had turned a new page, but the scars from my past life were still there, deep and inerasable. I had learned a bitter lesson about meddling and greed. That lesson had led me down this path, a path of cold-blooded revenge that was also deeply painful. Months after the verdict, everything slowly settled down. The Vance family name was now tarnished beyond repair. The neighbors who used to whisper about us now avoided my gaze or looked at me with a mix of fear and curiosity. I didn't mind. This isolation was far more bearable than the hypocrisy and cruelty I had endured from the people I once called family. I sold the house Julian and I had once lived in, the place that had witnessed so much tragedy. With the money, I bought a smaller, cozier, and more secluded apartment. I changed my phone number, severing all remaining ties to the past. There was no funeral for Serena, and no one claimed her body. Perhaps she truly had vanished from this world like a poisonous wind. I lived a quiet life, focusing on my work and myself. Money was no longer my only goal, But I still worked hard to ensure I would never have to depend on anyone again. I learned to take care of myself, not allowing my asthma to become a fatal weakness. I exercised, ate healthily, and sought peace within my soul. Sometimes I still thought about Julian, my brother, the only one who had ever shown me selfless affection. I remembered the times he protected me from our parents' scolding, his warm smiles, and his genuine advice. I wished I could have saved him in my past life. But now I knew I had avenged him in my own way. As for my niece, the unnamed baby, I often visited her grave. It was a small, simple plot in a secluded corner of the cemetery. I placed tiny flowers there, praying for her soul to find peace, to be reborn into a loving family where she would never have to endure such coldness and tragedy again. The world continued on, but for me it had changed completely. I was no longer the naive, weak Lara of my past life. I was a woman who had gone through hell and returned, stronger, wiser, and resolved never to repeat my old mistakes. The sunlight streamed through my window, illuminating my quiet room, bringing with it a new hope, a new beginning, a life that I alone would decide.